the 2022 ICAN Forum. I'm Rosalie Fransen, a Senior Program Officer with ICAN, and I'm here to interview Bushra Hyder, who is a Peacebuilder from Pakistan. So Bushra, could you tell me a little bit about what you do as a Peacebuilder?
Yeah, as a Peacebuilder, I work with students from age 3 till age 16. We have designed a peace education curriculum. Ours is the first school in Pakistan to have peace education as part of the mainstream curriculum. So I was basically an educationist, but the situation in Pakistan turned me into a Peacebuilder. It's a unique curriculum in the sense that it's not only for a private school, but it has also included the religious schools of my province where I live. And they have also implemented it in their madrasas as well. So this was a proud moment for us because the madrasas are usually isolated places and people like us have no access to them. So but when these madrasas, they took interest in our curriculum, it was a proud moment for us.
So I just wanted to ask you a little bit more about violent extremism in Pakistan. So you mentioned that it has sort of seeped into society there. Could you tell me a little bit more about that, how that has manifested, and specifically the connection to the education sector?
Actually, it is not any idea of this sort takes years. And in Pakistan, it took almost 35 to 40 years. It started with the Russian invasion in Afghanistan, where the funding was all directed towards Pakistan, especially our madrasas, the religious schools. And from them, because that was the time when we had a military government, we had a general in the power seats. So with the advent of that, the concept of jihad came to our schools, in our syllabus. The syllabus became very biased. There were comments, sentences, even messages in the curriculum, in the books, even in the textbooks. So naturally, the children who grew up during that era have developed a mindset, a more jihadi kind of a mindset. And jihad is almost the sixth pillar of Islam, but it's been given value in the textbooks. And then it's very difficult for us to explain to the students that yes, for jihad there are certain steps that you have to take. If it's the last one that you will go and fight against other people. But the first step is not that. Jihad is basically struggle against all your own negative feelings and ideas and attitude. But we don't talk about that. So it took almost 2, 3, 4 decades that we have come to this level. And now it definitely is going to take a lot of more time when we finally understand why we got involved in all this and why we have become like this. It will take 2 more generations to wipe out this ideology.
So the way that you interpret jihad is kind of as an internal process, an internal struggle against. What could you tell a little bit more?
It's like about your negative thoughts, about your negative feelings, about your negative actions. It's first your own self-control, and that's what we teach in our peace curriculum also. That you need to know your own self first. What do you want? Who are you? Who are you as a Muslim? Who are you as a human being? If I take a child's name, okay, Ahmad, who are you as Ahmad? So naturally, it becomes very difficult for a child to understand who is he and what does he want, why is he here. So if we start with this concept, and first he has to understand his own self, and then of course his own biases and his own anger, he has to take control of his own personality first, and his mind as well. So and jihad is actually when there is jihad bin nafs, that is our internal negative feelings. Then is jihad bil kalam. You can write anything against something. If you see something is going wrong, so you can write against that. So that is also jihad on your part. Well, we are not doing that, and we are directly going towards the sword and the gun, which is almost the end. And that too, when Islam is threatened, and that too, when all the religious scholars decide that now it's time for jihad. You cannot, as an individual, you cannot just say that I'm going to fight jihad. So, but our religious scholars and our religious teachers are actually not giving this idea to the public. Otherwise, from where are they going to earn their bread and butter?
It is interesting, this idea of jihad as being very personal and focused on understanding yourself, when we see extremist groups kind of completely erasing the individual and the human being and saying, you don't have an identity except your identity within this group and your identity in contributing to this bigger cause. So it's really a complete different approach to what they are teaching.
Yes, actually, even in our peace education session yesterday, we were discussing the same issue, that Islam says something else, but there it is misinterpreted. Everybody is politicizing Islam for their own purpose. And I think it's with almost all the religions, and that's what we teach in our peace curriculum also, that every religion talks about peace and love and humanity and understanding and accepting diversity, but all religions are being used politically. If we follow our religions, be it Christianity or Judaism or Hinduism or Buddhism, I think we talk about the same thing. We talk about love and we talk about understanding and living in harmony, where we have all misinterpreted our religions. If we believe in what the religion says, I think we will all be living in a better world than this.
And why, I know your background is in education, but what do you see kind of as the importance of education? Why do you think working with children is an effective sort of strategy for preventing extremism and for spreading messages of peace?
You see, I think it's addressing any problem should start right from the beginning, because that's growing age. The child's mind is progressing at that stage, and whatever you give them, teach them the values, the attitude, the mindset, that's the time you can frame them and change them and shape them the way you want to. Because you can change the mind of a child, you cannot change an adult's mind. It's too difficult, and we've seen that, we've experienced that. So whatever values we are giving to the students now, they're understanding it and they're accepting it as it is, because they don't understand whether a Christian is sitting next to me or a Hindu is sitting next to me or a Shia is sitting next to me. They're just friends, they're just class fellows. And we take that idea and we spread that in the school's environment, that you're all children and you're all friends and we are all human beings. So it's a humanity factor that should overcome any other value or any other concept. And I tell my teachers that if the terrorists are good enough, intelligent enough to change the mind of a young boy, of a teenager, and they turn him into a terrorist and they ask him to blow himself up, so why can't we change the mindset of our own children and turn them into peace building?
And if you think about it, it's interesting because children, they are born and they're sort of naturally peaceful, right? Yes. And accepting of diversity and tolerant and playing with each other. So those values of intolerance are instilled in them.
And the friendship that they develop in the school, it remains with them all their lives. Right. Because then in professional lives, in colleges, biases come, they are into competition, they are struggling for their professional careers. But as children, they don't have all these ideas. Right. So it's very easy for them to understand, to be friends, to like each other, to be together, to accept each other as they are.
So you've mentioned the peace curriculum a few times. I was just curious if you can tell me a little bit more about the content of the curriculum and specifically what kinds of values you teach students. And I know you incorporate some literature in it and some art in it, and so if you could speak a little bit more about that.
We actually target the students, but first of all we had to train our teachers, because I told you earlier that it's very difficult to change an adult's mind, and first of all convincing them that this is something very important and that they need to get this training and understand the basic concept of peace education. Initially, yes, we did have trouble in that also, but slowly and gradually they got the idea. So it was the training of the teachers, and then we brought it to the students. We have designed our curriculum in such a way that we first of all talk about anger. How can the students control their anger, and why do they feel angry, and what do they do when they feel angry, and then slowly and gradually then towards hatred, and then biases. What kind of biases do they have, and why do they have them, and do they want to get rid of them? And so it's a continuous process. Like we start with age 3 and then we end at age 16. So all these years, like we talk about not only in the class, but the whole school environment is such that it's very participatory. And then we take them to the larger community also, like we do it through competitions, through sports, through art, through street theatre, interactive theatre, where the children go. Sometimes they even write their own dialogues, and they go and they talk about these issues within the community. We have rural setups, so sometimes I take them to my village, sometimes another teacher takes them to her village. So they talk to the community there, and they do they act the drama in front of them. So for them, even it's an eye opener that these young children are giving some message. So it must be important that they are talking about it. So this is how we have built the culture of peace. And then we have an annual gathering of all the schools who are also following our curriculum. We have partner schools and madrasas as well. So they all come and they participate in these annual activities as well.
So you're kind of extending the impact of what you're doing by also engaging the community, and then by bringing all the schools together.
For sustainability, that's how you have to do it stepwise. Otherwise, if only I do it in my own school, it's not going to have an effect. So if it should trickle down to as many as possible, those who are willing to follow the curriculum and receive the teachers' training. So we do offer it. So we have, this year I've been busy building up our resource center. So like, and we are trying to extend the help to like even other countries if anybody is interested. So we can give them trainings, we can have our own maybe communication among the students as well. So I think that's how we should build relationships. We are all different, but we are the same as well. So if we don't have any communication, we usually don't know what is happening in other parts of the world.
Right.
We know what is happening politically, but culturally we have no idea.
Just speaking from the perspective of the United States, I think peace education could be immensely important there as well. So it's certainly like a universal approach and universal message.
Yeah, education, because you have these young kids, and you through their eyes you look at the future. So what are you giving them now that they are going to follow that in the future? So it's very important we work on these young minds.
And going back a little bit to the issue of extremisms, have you noticed signs of extremism or extremist thinking among your students? And if so, how have you sort of responded to that through your teaching?
Always. Even with all that we are doing, still we have incidents like last year in Afghanistan when the Taliban came. So there was a division among the Pakistanis. Some were favoring them, some were against them. So I just randomly asked a question in my grade 10 class that, what do you want to become in the future? And half of them said, we want to be martyrs, we want to be a shaheed, we want to go for jihad. And I naturally that started ringing bells, because this was my class, an outgoing class, would leave the school within 6 months' time. And if this is the mindset, so all that I had done for so many years is not going to have any impact. So then I started talking to them, okay, then why? And then they all started narrating stories that the religious teacher in the masjid told us that these are religious people and they are going to have a religious government. And I said, okay, they are going to have a religious government, but what about their being dependent on the foreign aid? They didn't like US to stay in the country, but now they're asking all the foreigners to help them out, to run their government. So then where is that Islam now? They should be self-reliant if they're taking the responsibility of a whole new country. They should have been skilled enough to run it now. And then, okay, fine. So, you see, they're young, they get influenced by all the hype that is created in media. And then, of course, in Pakistan, we always have hot debates about every issue. And we have experts about every issue. We have politicians and we have businessmen and everybody is a religious scholar. So naturally, these young minds, they get influenced by whatever they hear. So you see, you have to then counter that when you need to have arguments to convince them that what the teacher is saying is right. So because majority of the people trust the local religious teacher more than the teacher in the school.
So how do you do that? So you mentioned maybe pointing out some of the hypocrisies in advocating for this message and then receiving foreign aid. Are there any values that you bring the students back to in that moment? Just curious how you talk about these things.
Because you see, but I told them, okay, why do you have to go for jihad? I tell them the people who are sleeping hungry in Pakistan, within their own community, their neighbors need help. So then I ask them, have they helped their neighbors? That is jihad. Have they fed any poor man? Have they helped any old person crossing the road? Well, that is jihad for them. They don't have to pick up the gun and go and fight and die. For what? For nothing. That's not what Allah wants from you.
Right. You're only one of many messages they consume and narratives that they consume. But yep. And I guess a final question, what do you feel has been sort of the biggest success of your work or the biggest impact that you've been able to achieve so far?
Some of my students reported, especially when the Myanmar issue was again highlighted, some of my students reported that they had friends from another school and they used to go to this masjid together, to the mosque together for the recitation of the Quran, and that they were telling my students that they were planning to go for jihad to Myanmar, because the religious teacher had told them that they were big enough since they were 15 and 16, that they were big enough to go and fight jihad. My students reported that to us, and then through my students, we contacted the parents of those young boys, and the parents had no idea what was happening, and the boys were fully prepared to leave, maybe in 2-3 days' time. So we talked to the parents, and then we called the boys to the school also, and then we had this peace building session with them. We talked to them about jihad, and we talked to them about extremism and how these people were destroying the youth of our country and other countries also. And then the parents were very thankful, and the children had also realized that they were making a mistake, and they apologized to their parents that they were not letting them know where they were going. So, and then of course, the Quranic text is always there. How are you going to take care of your parents, and how you're not supposed to hurt them? So, and especially the mother's value in Islam. So you say you have to catch the children from different sides. You just can't be straightforwardly telling them, okay, no, this is wrong and this is right. No, you have to convince them. You have to give them evidence. You have to give them material so that they can understand. They have exposure to media channels. They have exposure to all kind of propaganda material as well. So you have to give them the exact text so that they know and understand what is right and what is wrong.
So bringing it back to the Quran, bringing it back to Islamic texts.
Yes, because that's what the Taliban had used and are still using. I won't say Taliban, but all the extremist groups together are they're misinterpreting Quran and Islam. So as Muslims, it becomes our duty to teach the right message that's there in the Quran.
So I was wondering about the role of gender in this work. And is there any way that you incorporate kind of attention to gender equality? And you also mentioned working with transgender people. I was reading the other day about the first transgender madrasa opening in Pakistan.
Yeah.
So could you speak a little bit about the role of gender and also other types of identities like transgender?
Yeah, you see, when you're talking about peace education, so it's peace for everyone. And even in Islam also, like if we talk about women's rights, so Islam has given rights to women more than any other religion. So we do talk about that. As I said, the role of a mother and the importance of mother in Quran and Islam and in the life of the Holy Prophet. So of course we have to bring that to it. Gender roles are given by the society and we make the children understand that. And setting an example myself, like I tell them that I make my son work more at home as compared to my daughter. So, and then I encourage the boys to be helping their mothers and like respecting their teachers, and of course whoever is outside their close circle, they should be respected, and anybody can do anything. And the media is also playing slightly positive role in this also, like we have these women going to the police and more women in the army. So now I think the students or the children or the boys especially are understanding and realizing the importance of equality in all cases.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Bushra, and sharing your incredible peace education work.
Thank you for having me here and listening to me patiently.